Hi there, my name is Pat Brown. I'm 60-year-old and I've been involved in the physical fitness world and general body maintenance programs for private clients for the last 40 years. This is my first video on YouTube, and it's a simple attempt by me to pass on just a few of my personal experience. There are three central elements which make up any body maintenance or any weight loss or weight gain program, and they relate to food, exercise and rest. There's nothing else involved in body maintenance, nothing else. It falls down into these three parameters, and food represents approximately 60% of this maintenance. Exercise represents approximately 20% of the maintenance, and rest and sleep represent another 20% of the maintenance. In order to understand how these three essential parameters, which are at the core of all body maintenance, weight gain, weight loss programs, that's food, exercise and rest, to understand how these came about and why they're so essential and why they are the core elements of any program, we've got to go back in time until man as Homo sapiens arrived on this planet. Now, the social anthropologists tell us that was approximately 250,000 years ago. That's 1/4 years ago. Now, if we're to accept that, and there are other anthropologists who tell us it's a lot longer, but however, if we're to accept the 250,000 years that we as Homo sapiens have been here on this planet, that represents 12,500 generations. That is 12,500 generations if we accept that a generation then lasted 20 years. And for the vast bulk of that period, our ancestors were hunter-gatherers. In other words, they hunted fish and meat primarily, and they gathered nuts, berries, seeds, honey, fruits and vegetables. But the key to all of this is that all of the food that they ate, all of the food they ate was organic and entirely natural. Man had no input into altering or changing the food. All of the food they ate for the vast majority of that 250,000 years was entirely natural and organic. You have to keep saying that over and over and over again. And we'll deal with the reason for that very, very shortly. Why this is so vital and so important. This is actually, if you didn't learn one thing from this video, this would be the most important thing. It's probably the most important thing you could know in your life. The second element, exercise, which our ancestors as Homo sapiens, as hunter-gatherers, engaged in, was not done on a daily basis. They did not go to work at 9 o'clock in the morning and come home at 6 o'clock. The type of activity they engaged in was quite strenuous. Sometimes it was very short, very intense. Other times it was a prolonged, very strenuous and arduous and required great stamina. As I said, it wasn't a 9 to 5 job. It wasn't tillage that they were involved in. It wasn't growing crops. They were hunting animals. Sometimes big animals, sometimes small animals. And the reason I'm raising this is because the type of activity that they engaged in was strenuous and arduous. But when it was over, it was over. They didn't do it on a daily basis. They didn't expose their bodies to huge amounts of physical and mental stress on a daily basis. They had to hunt. They captured the animals. They divvied up the food. They had their feast, or whatever form it took, the consumption of the food. Then it was over. And then they rested. And they didn't rest for 8 hours, go to bed and rest for 8 hours. They rested for prolonged periods. So what you had is, you had prolonged periods of physical activity and prolonged periods of rest. In the next video clip that I do, I will draw and expand on why this is so vitally important for modern man. Why what our ancestors did is so vitally important for us today, living in the beginning of the 21st century. And I hope you'll share that with me. As I said, this is my first video clip for YouTube. I hope you've enjoyed it, and possibly when I make in the next few days, when I make video clip 2 and video clip 3 of this little series, it will be of some help to you. Thank you very much.